My friends, it seems I won't be able to catch a break as war is looming in the South China Sea. The aggressive posturing of China increases the likelihood of a cross-strait conflict occurring in the next few years. And knowing the scales of wars in Asia, this next battle for Taiwan could make the Russia-Ukraine war look like a warm-up. The latest Chinese show of force around Taiwan was a wake-up call for the United States. As the US deployed its naval assets away from Taiwan, on May 23, 2024, China conducted a large-scale military exercise called Joint Sword 2024A, involving dozens of warships and over 100 aircraft all around Taiwan. China says war games around Taiwan to test the ability to seize power. Many Chinese People's Liberation Army officials believe, I quote, the liberation by force of Taiwan, as well as war with the United States, inevitable, some say within the next 5 years. Meanwhile, the Taiwanese soldiers are getting the fireworks ready for their liberation by force.
Do you really think you have a chance against us, Mr. Cowboy?
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
For China, from a geostrategic perspective, the takeover of the Republic of China, aka Taiwan, is a must in order to secure its access to the Pacific and thus secure its trade routes. But also to finally claim bubble teas as their own invention. Whether we talk about a naval blockade all around the island of Taiwan, or a full-scale amphibious invasion, China must make sure its naval capabilities are up for the task. On the other hand, the latest military exercises also reveal the limits and weaknesses in the PLA's operational capabilities, and galvanize surrounding countries to form a military alliance with the United States. With that being said, we have to admit that China's 2024A exercise was so skillfully planned and coordinated, we could think Chinese warships use some sort of VPN to camouflage their entire operation. This video is sponsored by Private Internet Access. Private Internet Access is a VPN that provides you with extra privacy online, and that lets you virtually connect anywhere around the world. A VPN is like a private tunnel that keeps your online activity safe and hidden from prying eyes. I recommend Private Internet Access because of how easy it is to use. Once you download it, you just have to click on this button and voila! You just masked your IP address from snoops and trackers to a virtual one. The benefits of this virtual IP address is that it is encrypted, so it protects you from malicious snoops and trackers. The beauty of Private Internet Access is that it bypasses geolocked content on streaming platforms like Netflix. Let's say I want to watch a good war movie like Full Metal Jacket, but sadly it's not available in Canada. No worries, I can activate PIA. Click here, input Australia in the search bar, let's pick Adelaide, and there it is. Nice, they even have the movie 71. Now I can access Australia's amazing selection of war movies. Also notice the excellent download and upload speed performance, so you won't have to worry about any connection issues. And that's not all, Private Internet Access also has an amazing new feature. You can now use one subscription to protect an unlimited amount of devices at the same time. To help you, Private Internet Access VPN offers you 83% off, with 4 months for free if you use my exclusive link in the description below. From a political perspective, Operation Joint Sword 2024A, or like the Chinese call it, Sharp Sword 2024A, was most likely triggered by the inauguration of the incoming pro-independence Taiwanese president Lai Ching-te, which happened 3 days before the exercises. We remember how the Chinese military also carried out large-scale exercises when the US Speaker of the House at the time visited Taiwan. This means China has this habit of conducting military exercises around Taiwan in times of political importance. However, what was striking with the latest exercise of the Chinese Navy is how its deployment was executed with speed and secrecy. That's the most important thing to remember about this operation, some sort of Chinese maskirovka. No media reports were published about the upcoming 2024A exercise in both mainland China and foreign countries. No trailers, no announcements, no TikTok videos, nothing. That's how, all of a sudden, at 8 a.m. on the 23rd of May, right when the RRC finished deploying one of its Chongfeng 2 anti-ship missiles, PLAN frigates sailed to positions 60 kilometers from Taipei, the capital of Taiwan. This naval exercise is not a standalone drill. Instead, it is part of a series of military exercises from the past and into the future. They will simulate and formulate the optimum deployment pattern to successfully capture all ROC territory. From a political perspective, it was also imperative to avoid Japan's economic waters, especially since their island chain is so close to Taiwan. And you don't want to hear this Batotai song approach from the horizon. In 2022, China announced the military exercise prior to the drills and published the planned exercise regions, whereas this year's exercise was executed without any prior warnings. The crazy part is how US intelligence was unable to detect this in advance, and thus make the appropriate deployments in response to the PLAN's exercise. We can see this from the diverted positions of 2 US carrier groups in the Asia-Pacific region. For example, in 2022, US task forces operated much closer to Taiwan during China's military exercise, whereas in 2024, the USS Ronald Reagan was sailing east of Japan, while the USS Theodore Roosevelt was located near Singapore. There's no way they would have been able to intervene in time if China was actually launching the invasion of Taiwan. This means the US Navy got completely fooled.
Is the poop deck really what I think it is?
So that was the ISAR part, but let's take a look at the technical aspects of this military exercise. Something to take note is how this year is the first time the PLA has marked the region around Taiwan's outer islands, like Kinmen and Matsu near the Chinese coast, as military exercise zones. Another surprise is how the Chinese Coast Guard was involved in these drills, as they deployed around these islands, simulating amphibious assaults. For example, on the first day of the drill, 7 out of 19 ships belonged to the Coast Guard. This demonstrates 2 things. Number 1, how the PLA is planning the capture of these islands to secure the supply lines between mainland China and Taiwan. Number 2, the increased coordination between Coast Guard vessels with PLA forces to support military objectives. This is namely one of the biggest differences with the 2023 military exercises. The exercise region east of Taiwan was positioned much closer to Holian City, at just 60 kilometers off the coast compared to over 150 kilometers in 2022. This may suggest the preparation of an amphibious operation to capture this strategic city, which would act as a wedge between the closest Japanese island, Yonaguni, and Taiwan's east coast to blockade possible US supplies. Regardless of the likelihood of foreign intervention, the Chinese military is preparing for potential confrontation with the US and its allies, like Japan, South Korea, and the Philippines. Another important target in the sector would be the Jiashan Air Base, which has a vast tunnel structure in the mountains and a runway protected by the central mountain ranges to its west. This base can also withstand at least Richter 7 scale earthquakes and host up to 200 aircraft. Another exercise region in the southeast was wedged between Taiwan and the Philippines, thus severing routes from all foreign territorial islands in close proximity that can act as a supply node for US military aid to flow into Taiwan. On the western side of the island, there was a new exercise region, forming a reverse wedge formation to encircle and essentially besiege the Penghu Islands. This set of islands is extremely strategic as it can act as a forward operating base and supply node for PLA Marines to storm the beaches on the west coast of Taiwan. So all this is providing us with very important clues as to what China is preparing. Step 1 could be the capture of all Taiwanese islands located right on the coast of mainland China. Meanwhile, the Chinese Navy will start the encirclement of Taiwan proper to prevent any foreign intervention. Step 2 will be the capture of the Penghu Islands, from where PLA forces can regroup and coordinate the main assault on the island. And step 3, the actual amphibious assault on the island of Taiwan, with a continuous stream of ferries going from the Penghu Islands to the main island of Taiwan. And honestly, this makes much more sense considering the limited amphibious capabilities of the Chinese Navy. During the Sharp Sword naval exercise, Taiwan's Ministry of National Defense reported 49 PLA aircraft, 19 PLAN vessels, and 7 Coast Guard ships around Taiwan on May 23rd, the first day of the joint exercises. 35 of the aircraft crossed the median line of the Taiwan Strait and entered the north, central, and southwest parts of Taiwan's air defense identification zone. The second day, on May 24th, Taiwan's Ministry of Defense reported 62 PLA aircraft and 27 PLAN vessels operating around Taiwan. This time, 47 of the aircraft crossed the median line of the Taiwan Strait and entered Taiwan's southwest, southeast, and eastern air defense identification zone. Meanwhile, according to the propaganda footage released by China, we have images of 6 main platforms and weapon systems that the PLA deployed for this exercise. These platforms included the J-20 stealth fighter aircraft, the J-16 fighter, the Type 52D destroyer Kunming, the Type 71 amphibious transport dock, Dongfeng series ballistic missiles, and the PHL-16 multiple rocket launch system. Meanwhile, while the Chinese military featured all these platforms in their PR campaign, it does not appear that in reality the PLAN conducted any live fire exercises. We can also briefly cover China's post-landing strategy. There are currently a total of about 400,000 police officers in the Xinjiang province, 200,000 of which is part of the People's Liberation Army, and the rest being mostly composed of the PAP, the People's Armed Police, or various regular police units, which are tasked with enforcing law and order. The People's Republic of China may employ a similar strategy in Taiwan, with the PLA spearheading the offensive, while leaving calming operations to the PAP. In recent years, the People's Armed Police has been transformed into a force capable of supporting the PLA in rear support operations over the years. You see, the Chinese understood always protect the rear end areas. According to the International Institute for Strategic Studies, the PAP has gained responsibility for the Chinese Coast Guard and is now focused on 3 core missions: internal security, maritime security, and supporting the PLA in times of war. Like we said before, proper countermeasures and maneuvers in response to foreign military deployments must be considered. There are constant large-scale military exercises inside China that involve the entire Eastern Theater Command, and sometimes combined with the air and naval components of the Northern and Southern Theater Commands. The Eastern Theater Command has multiple group armies under its jurisdiction, namely the 71st, 72nd, and 73rd group armies that are facing Taiwan. The ground forces of a group army in the PLA typically consists of around 6 maneuver combined arms brigades. We will analyze their structure in a future video, but we can estimate a group army to total 30,000 to 50,000 military personnel, roughly the size of 1 to 2 NATO Army corps. This suggests a ground force manpower for the Eastern Theater Command of approximately 90,000 to 150,000 troops. This will probably be the spearhead of the invasion force for Taiwan. If we add naval, air, and support units, we can add another 120,000 to 150,000 personnel, for a total of 210,000 to 300,000 troops just for the Eastern Theater Command. This is massive. That's 50% more than the Russian invasion force of 2022. And all this not along a 2,000-kilometer front, but only around Taiwan. I can barely imagine the concentration of troops that we will witness. One important thing to notice is how PLA ground forces are constantly conducting military exercises in the background. One such example is that PLA units from other regions regularly visit Xinjiang to undergo training and exchange knowledge with local PLA units. Similarly, Eastern Theater Command units can train with the ones of the Southern Theater Command, which are stationed in mountainous regions similar to the ones we can find in Taiwan. So overall, there's this entire military expertise that is being shared among the ranks of the People's Liberation Army. Another example is the Shurihe training base in Inner Mongolia, the largest training base of the PLA and also all across Asia. It is most well known for hosting the 2017 PLA's 90th anniversary parade, with Xi Jinping's inspection. The training facilities can accommodate 5 divisions of the ground forces, and C4 ISR systems are installed all across the training base. Not only that, but in that same region, the Chinese army also built a life-size mock-up of certain parts of Taiwan's capital, Taipei. For example, a video released 10 years ago revealed Chinese troops practicing an all-out assault on the fake presidential palace, looking almost exactly the same as the one we can find in Taipei. Coincidence? Not sure. I mean, they also do train around a mock-up of the Eiffel Tower. In 2011, the PLA created its first Op-4 unit, Opposition Force. Fun fact, in the Chinese military, the Op-4 is represented with the color blue, because red is the color of the communists, and that's good. In the cross-strait live-fire exercises from 2014 to 2016, the Blue Army was led by Senior Colonel Man Guangxi. During this time, he fought 33 war games involving close to 30 divisions and brigades, and achieved a record of 32 wins and 1 loss. And because of that, Man Guangxi became some sort of meme icon in China. These war game victories clearly showed the capabilities of this Op-4 general, and how seriously China is preparing for the next war. However, his crushing victories as Team Blue also demonstrated the monumental task ahead of the PLA's invasion of Taiwan, and exposed the lack of ability in countering Western tactics among regular units, as Team Blue basically operates under NATO doctrine. Contrary of Western expectations and experience from the buildup of Russian forces before the invasion of Ukraine, the PLA may actually not give any reaction time for the West to react to its military deployments. Essentially, they want to capture Taiwan so fast that it becomes like some sort of fait accompli. This is evident both from past deployments and the recent military exercises. Before Pelosi's visit to Taiwan in 2022, and while tensions with the US and Taiwan were high, the 71st Group Army from Hubei was given the order to transfer its entirety to Zhejiang province within 2 days. And this operation was a success. China deployed roughly 50,000 troops to embarkation areas within 48 hours. It's important to note that all major roads and highways in Zhejiang are of military grade, which are assumed to be capable of carrying tanks and have a certain degree of resistance against strikes. Another important aspect is the capabilities of the railway network. For example, in a joint military exercise with Mongolia, the Chinese military analyzed the transportation of 100 armored vehicles, equivalent to a PLA's medium combined arms battalion, and planned its redeployment in 3 echelons within 3 days. In other words, they're constantly trying to improve the way they can transfer a large amount of troops and the vehicles from one side of China to another. Fun fact, some people in Hubei province caught wind of this large-scale military exercise by the Eastern Theater Command, and the stress among the civilian population immediately spiked. They must have been like, GG well played, we're going in.
Get up. Gear up. Fall in.
In the end, the 2022 exercise was announced on the 2nd of August, the same day as Pelosi's visit. Assuming that the transit order was given on the same day, it took only 3 days before the elements that were involved completed the maneuver. However, there's no available information regarding this incident on the internet. Unfortunately, I cannot further analyze this military exercise and all the deployments that occurred, because unofficial reporting of military movements of the PLA is strictly forbidden in China. That's all I have for you today. Let me know in the comment section what you thought of my analysis. If you're new to this channel, make sure to like and subscribe. And if you want to support my work, make sure to check out my Patreon or PayPal. The link is in the description below.